Oh, not even close. And this was part of a package of about 18 deals as well. So as big as this package was, and it was huge, the overall package was absolutely the type of thing that received personal attention of the leaders, the absolute top leaders at Goldman Sachs. So it's very curious to me that the SEC has failed to name the higher-ups.
Why did it take so long for the Securities Exchange Commission, the SEC, to kick into gear on this? I mean, have they kicked into gear?
Well, they haven't kicked into gear fully, or they'd be naming Blankfein and other senior leaders of Goldman. And they've, as you just mentioned, they've only gone after a junior person. And there would be, if they were really in gear, there'd be criminal charges here. And if they were really in gear, there'd be a broad investigation, not just of Goldman, but of all of these major entities. In the last 3 weeks, we have finally done a half-baked investigation, mind you, nothing like we did in the savings loan days, of Washington Mutual, WAMU, Citicorp, Lehman, and Goldman. And we have found strong evidence of fraud at all 4 places. And we have looked previously at Fannie and Freddie and found the same thing. So the only 6 places we've looked at really elite institutions, we found strong evidence of fraud. So where are the other investigations? Why are there no arrests? Why are there no convictions?
Well, Bill, where are the other investigations? Why have there been no arrests? Why have there been no convictions?
Because we have still Bush's wrecking crew in charge of the key regulatory agencies. Why are they still in place? They have abysmal records as major causes of this crisis.
You talk about the Bush appointee still being there, but Goldman's former lobbyist is Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner's chief of staff, the head of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, Gary Gensler, who may soon have new power over the derivatives, worked for Goldman. So did the deputy director of the White House National Economic Council. The undersecretary of state is a former Goldman employee. Goldman's hired Barack Obama's recent chief counsel from the White House on his defense team. I mean,
don't forget Rubin.
Robert Rubin, whose influence is all over the place, who used to be...
It's his protégés that are in charge of economic policy under Obama.
Is this administration, which still has some Bush holdovers in it, and now has a lot of Goldman people in it, is this administration going to be able to pass judgment on Goldman Sachs?
Well, so far they haven't been able to do it. They can't even get themselves to use the word fraud. There's a huge part that is economic ideology. And neoclassical classical economists don't believe that fraud can exist. I mean, they just flat out, the leading textbook in corporate law, from law and economics perspective, by Easterbrook and Fischel, says, and I'll get pretty close to exact quotation, a rule against fraud is neither necessary nor particularly important, right? Notice how extreme that statement is. We don't need laws. We don't need an FBI. We don't need a Justice Department. We don't even need rules like the SEC. The markets cleanse themselves automatically and prevent all frauds. This is a spectacularly naive thing. There is enormous ideological content, and it fits with class. And it fits with political contributions. Do you want to look at these seemingly respectable, huge financial institutions, which are your leading political contributors, as crooks?
The Hill.com website says Goldman Sachs is uniquely positioned to fight this case, that it spent $18 million over the last decade lobbying members of Congress and put millions more in their campaigns. I mean, you've said elsewhere, that's smart business, right? To invest in the politicians who are going to be investigating you?
I would tell you, the savings and loan crisis, our phrase was, the highest return on assets is always a political contribution.
Well, all right, you're a member of Congress. The Supreme Court has said Goldman Sachs can spend all it wants in November to defeat you. Are you going to take them on?
Absolutely, but I would never be elected to Congress because of that. So in terms of that Supreme Court decision, if corporations are going to be just like people, Let me tell you my criminologist hat. Then let's use the three-strike laws against them. Three-strike laws, you go to prison for life if you have 3 felonies. How many of these major corporations would still be allowed to exist if we were used to three-strike laws, given what they've been convicted of in the past? And in most states, they remove your civil rights when you're convicted of a felony. Well, let's take away their right to make political contributions if they're found guilty of a violation.
Bill, are you describing a political culture that is criminogenic?
It's deeply criminogenic. And this ideology that both parties are dominated by, that says, no, big corporations wouldn't cheat, fraud can't happen, markets automatically exclude it, is insane. We now have the entitlement generation as CEOs. They just plain feel entitled to being wealthy as Croesus, with no responsibility, no accountability. They have become literal sociopaths. So one of the things is you clean up business schools, which right now are fraud factories at the senior levels, right? They create the new monsters that take control and destroy massive enterprises and cause global economic crises, cause the Great Recession, and very, very close to causing the Second Great Depression. We just barely missed that, and there's no assurance that we've missed it 5 years out.
This brings us back to what the President said this week. He said the crisis was born of a failure of responsibility from Wall Street to Washington. You've just described that. That brought down many of the world's largest financial firms and nearly dragged our economy into a Second Great Depression. But he didn't name names. He doesn't say who specifically was responsible. You have, but the President doesn't name names.
No, and one of the most important things a president has is the bully pulpit. We have not heard speeches by the President demanding that the frauds go to prison. We have not heard speeches from the Attorney General of the United States of America, Eric Holder. Indeed, we haven't heard anything. It's like Sherlock Holmes, the dog that didn't bark. And that's the dog that is supposed to be our guard dog. It must bark, and it must have teeth, not just bark.
Bill Black, thank you for being back on the Journal.
Thank you.